to another awesome episode of Rock Talk with the DocRocker. I am Jeff Bonelmo. I'm with the DocRocker himself, Danton Arlotto, and we are talking about one of our favorite bands, Iron Maiden. Yes, again, we're talking about Iron Maiden, but this time we're going to give our top 20 Iron Maiden songs in order. That was what made it hard. Am I right?
Yeah, that was the hardest part. We kind of brainstormed this idea way back when we first started this podcast, and it was, like, okay, we'll do a whole bunch of different stuff on Maiden. It's our, our mutual favorite band, and we can easily just do episode after episode, and we're trying to really exercise some self-control, but it's inevitable. Those of you that are following the channel, get used to Maiden, because we're going to talk about them a lot. And and I think it was Jeff, it was your idea, right, to make this like top 20 kind of thing, and like go through like the top 20. So it's like, all right, I'll easily come up with like 20 awesome Maiden songs that I would show any person I'm trying to get into the band. So I went through like album by album, and I put it all chronologically, and I was like, all right, here we go. Here's my top 20. Here's a bunch of songs from album to album. And I shared it with Jeff, and then he hit me with the hardest part about this is we have to put them in order, not chronologically, but in order from like 20 being the worst out of the 20 and number 1 being the best end all be all Iron Maiden song of all time. And that made it a lot more difficult. Took me hours just to put it together. Yeah. And I'll probably, even in the course of the weeks that follow, I'll probably end up changing my mind on some of these. But I wanted to put something together to give us a bunch of awesome songs to talk about and just have some fun with it. So
I even looked at mine today, and I'm like, I don't know. I want to change, but I can't. I put them together. I can't. Now, I do have to make, I got to make a statement here. I have to say this isn't my original idea either, like to do the top 20 and do it in order. It's not my idea. I took this idea from the great Eddie Trunk from SiriusXM, Trunk Nation. He used to host that metal show on VH1 Classic, and he's pretty much an encyclopedia on hard rock and metal music, and he does this on his show every once in a while. He did a Iron Maiden top 20. He did a Led Zeppelin top 20. He did a Metallica top 20. So I thought this would be kind of cool for us to do. And his rules are same as ours. You got to put it in order. And there can be like no ties, I don't think he allows like live versions, but we could allow live versions if you want, because it's Iron Maiden.
Mm-hmm. Well, I stuck with studio recordings only.
Yeah, I do have one that I prefer the live version over the studio version, but we'll get to that later. So, without further ado, you're up first. I want to hear what you got.
Okay, so number 20 for me is off of Number of the Beast, the song 22 Acacia Avenue. And now that I'm looking at my list, I think that might be the only song from Number that's on my list, actually. I mean, I love the album altogether. I think it's great. It's fantastic, and it's got a lot of really cool stuff on it. But for me, like, I think 22 Acacia Avenue is one of those like really underrated songs, because it's just so easily outshined hit-wise by, like Run to the Hills and the title track. Hallowed Be Thy Name is a really popular one. But for me, like, there's just something so encapsulating about 22 that, as far as like the whole storytelling nature of, for one thing, what the song is about is really, really interesting. But also just musically, it goes in a really interesting different direction. It's one of the, I think I would say it's one of the earliest kind of progressive songs. And a lot of my top picks are going to be the more progressive ones, because that's the essence of Maiden that I enjoy the most, being a prog guy. So I really like that song. So it made my list, and it's at the bottom.
There's different parts of that song. There's a whole bunch of different parts of that song. And I really like that song. It's a sequel to Charlotte the Harlot, we'll say. And it continues her story, and the story of the man who falls in love with her. And you're right, there's a bunch of different movements in that song. There's a bunch of different changes.
Yeah, and the lyrics are great. I don't know how much of it was Harris or how much of it was other guys, but it's a masterpiece. Yeah. I think it's one of their best songs. So it's on my list.
It's an interesting song. You don't get bored listening to that, because there's so many different parts to it. Yeah, it's a great song. It's not on my list, but it's a great song.
Yeah, we're gonna have that about so many of ours. What's your number 20?
Okay, for my number 20, It comes from the Brave New World album,
Okay.
but it's not on it. It's not on the Brave New World album. It's the Wicker Man radio edit. The reason why I picked this is I believe the chorus in that song is way better with that overdubbed secondary vocal that goes over top of the other.
Thy will be done. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When he says your time will come and he screams, thy will be done. It just adds so much more to that song. I don't know why it's not there.
Yeah, I don't know why they changed that. That's really unfortunate. I would include that on my list, but I didn't want to include anything that wasn't officially released on an album. Otherwise, that song would totally be on my top 20, and it would probably be way up higher on the list because it's
that's why I wanted to include it. It's the radio edit. I know we didn't make a rule about that, but that's
fine. I set the rule for myself. I'm not expecting everyone to follow the same rules I'm following.
I like the song itself. The way it appeared on the album, I liked it, but it would probably be like, down a little bit more. It wouldn't even have made this list. It would have been maybe in 30. The 30.
Yeah.
But I just love that chorus so much more.
Yeah, me too.
That's number 20.
100%. All right, number 19. So for me, this is going to come as no surprise to anyone who knows me. There's going to be a bunch of stuff from A Matter of Life and Death on here because I think that album is really underrated and super fantastic, and there's not a bad song on it. So my number 19 is The Longest Day. This is because the whole album in general is themed around World War II. So of course you got Brighter Than a Thousand Suns about the atom bomb. You have The Longest Day is about the invasion on Normandy Beach. So, and like there are so many reasons I love this song as much as I do. The lyrics really, really set the picture and set the tone for the story. There's this really awesome, like really slow, gradual buildup they do. And by the time you hit that first chorus, I literally can close my eyes and see the soldiers storming the beach, like in something like Saving Private Ryan. Like there's just this like really, really awesome imagery that's evoked from the lyrics, as well as just hearing Bruce's vocals really soar him in that higher register for the first time in the song. The guitar playing at that point, we're right in the heart of the Reformation era. So you hear that the best of all three of their guitar players at the time. There's great solos in it. There's this really cool progressive instrumental sort of bridge section that has a lot of different moments. And I remember right at that point on the first listen through this album, it was already cemented as one of my favorites, was listening to this song for the first time. And it just blew me away. Jeff?
Wow. You're right. And unfortunately, I don't think I have anything from that album on my list. I did have one song from that album on my list that I did drop off because that was going back and forth like 19 and 20. I was going back and forth with Greater Good of God because I love that song. But I didn't have room. So
that's part of the problem with Maiden. You have to really make it like a top 50 and you still would have like I got like my list of 20 compiled and it's like, there's so many songs that I love that I don't even include here. I think anyone's going to have that same problem.
That's what makes this fun. So number 19, Hallowed Be Thy Name.
Okay.
It's pretty much has everything an Iron Maiden song should have. It tells a story, starts off with this like slow kind of moody thing where Bruce is singing about waiting in his cold cell. Then it comes in with that signature double harmony lead kind of thing they do so well. Then there's the stop, and then Bruce screams, when the priest comes to bring me the last rites, all that stuff is in Hallowed Be Thy Name.
Very theatrical. It's great. It's a fantastic song.
It's a great song, but I don't need to hear it in concert again. They always play it. It's like, okay. It's still a great song.
That's kind of how I feel about it. Like, all right, I like the stuff that's a little lesser played.
Yeah. Great vocal performance, especially at the end with Bruce. I mean, he's screaming his head off at the end there, and he holds that note out.
Yeah.
Ooh,
and he still does it live. 40 years later, he still hits the same notes. It's ridiculous. I can't believe it.
Especially
I just saw him last year live, and I was like, "Is he gonna go for that high note?" Oh, yep, he did, and he nailed it, and it was perfect. I hate him. I hate him so much because he's too good. So, all right.
Okay, you're next, number 18.
All right, number 18 is off of their at the time of this recording, it's their most recent studio album, The Book of Souls. My vote goes for The Red and the Black. You have this really
Wow.
awesome,
Yeah.
ominous bass solo or Steve Harris really shines. And you have
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, it starts off with that awesome bass, that awesome bass
and they
solo.
played it live when they, I mean, I think they played it both on their Book of Souls World Tour and on their most recent tour before, of course, COVID and all of that. So I got to see them play it live, and it just slaps. It's awesome. It's got so many great riffs and hooks, and the chorus is really, really catchy. And it is a little repetitive, but for me, like, I like it enough that I don't mind hearing it as many times as I do. And all the instrumental bits of it are great. And I think, I remember kind of like not really following the band a whole lot as far as like what's going on now before the album came out. Cause it was like, oh no, Bruce has cancer. So like, is that the end? The last album was called The Final Frontier. Is that really like, so I was not really kind of following any of the news. I was just like listening to all my favorite stuff and just like, all right, that's my thing now, whatever. But then I remember seeing like, oh, okay. So Bruce beat cancer. And we have a new album, and it's coming out in like 2 weeks. And like, whoa, what? And it's got a song that's going to rival the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. I was like, yeah, right. Okay. And like The Red of the Black was the first song I was listening when I was listening to the Book of Souls album for the first time, both discs. I'm like, is this the one they were talking about? Is this the one that's supposed to rival the Rime of the Ancient Mariner as far as like being this great hype song? And we'll get there. We'll get there later on. But yeah, my vote goes for The Red and the Black. I think it's great. It's an awesome song on the newest album, and it's just really, really cool.
They also did a beer called the Red and the Black, which was really, really good.
I only had their Trooper. I didn't have Red and the Black yet, but I really want to try it.
They did Red and the Black. They did a Trooper. They did a Trooper 666, which is a little bit hoppier. And they did I want to say it was called Hallowed Be Thy Name.
I would try it right now.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good. I may have an empty bottle actually still sitting in my bar because the artwork on those bottles is so great. And
yeah,
you just have recap them and stick them up in my bar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my number 18 is by far the best song, in my opinion, the best song on Fear the Dark. Judas Be My Guide.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
That, such a great song.
Grossly underrated song.
Yeah, it's a gem on that album.
Yeah.
By far, I think it's the best song on the album. Even better than Fear the Dark, even though they play Fear the Dark constantly in concert. That's a great Maiden song too. But Judas Be My Guide, I always liked it. And there's nothing more to say about it. You talked about it before.
Yeah.
You actually reminded me how great that song was.
Yeah.
When I went back, because I rarely listen to Fear the Dark. So when I went back,
I really don't like the album as a whole.
Yeah, it's a great song off a Not So Good album.
Yeah, and for the record, that is my personal favorite, absolute number one favorite Maiden song of all time is Judas Be My Guide.
It's not number one on your list though.
No, well, because you mentioned when we set these rules, like number one is not your favorite Maiden song, but the best Maiden song.
Well, okay.
So I was trying to be really objective putting my list together. Now I will.
Oh, this is my favorite. These are my favorites. And
for me, some of these, like I have Judas Be My Guide on my list, but it's surprisingly low given that it's my favorite song out of their whole output. But I think there's a lot of other songs that they do that I think are overall just better musically in some certain ways. And we'll talk about that as we go up the list.
Okay, all right. That sounds
yeah, so our lists are going to be a lot different. Yeah, mine. I tried to be really, because I could easily just sit here and roll off my favorites, but I wanted to kind of try something a little different. So I went songs like, is this song really as good as I like it to be, or is it one of the, so that was kind of my thought process going into putting this list together.
So what's your number 17?
My number 17 is another off of A Matter of Life and Death. These Colors Don't Run. For very much a lot of the same reasons that I put The Longest Day on there. In fact, there's several of their songs on this album that I think are really just structurally sound and put together in a way that, makes for very effective storytelling, very effective atmosphere setting. It's a really great display of all of the facets of the band. Steve Harris is writing, Bruce Dickinson singing, all three of the guitar players, and even Nico. Just something about his playing and like what he does with his fills and his transitions from section to section. They have some really nice, interesting tempo changes and time signature changes. It's got a really progressive feel to it in this album. And that's something they openly talk about on the documentary they made of the making of that album. And of course, I watched it 1,000 times because I love this album so much. But I think this song is just overall, like, it's a solid display of all things Maiden. You got everything that you could ask for with this band in this song. And it's on my list. It's on my top 20. Yours?
Well, before I move on, I have to say about that song. I think that song, and it's been a while since I listened to it, that album, beginning to end. When I first heard that album, I thought that song was slightly too slow. That's what I remember about that song for the first time. I thought it drug a little bit. It's a little draggy. If it was just, if the tempo was kicked up just a little bit, just a couple notches,
it could be very
it would have been a better
effective.
song.
Yeah, I'd have to imagine it, but for me, I like the tempo it is because it makes it feel a little heavier than a lot of their older stuff.
Yeah,
and that's kind of something I like. I like some of the heavier stuff, so you can kind of argue it either way. That's really interesting. I never thought of that. So.
Yeah, and that was one of the arguments on the internet web boards when this album came out, was
a lot of it
slow. Needed to be just a little bit faster, you know. And
really interesting.
I remember talking, great lengths, you know, keyboard warriors typing away on the old web boards before Facebook and MySpace and social media existed.
Yeah.
When we would talk about that album in general, especially that song, a lot of people would say, like, you know, just punch it up a little bit, punch up the tempo just a little bit. And, you know, now live, it sounds a lot better, I think, because it's just a little bit faster, you know?
Yeah, they get a little bit of that adrenaline kick when they do it live. Mm-hmm.
Right. And they do that with most of their songs, and which is comes to number 17 on my list. Sometimes they play this a little too fast. The Trooper is number 17.
Oh, yeah. Know? Yeah, they're very guilty of that.
But the Trooper's number 17, and all I have to say about that is the signature gallop in that song. That's why it's there.
So many signature elements. The signature dual guitar lead, the signature high vocals. You know,
without having a slow intro, it's pretty much Hallowed Be Thy Name with a different riff.
If Hallowed Be Thy Name punched you in the face, it would be the Trooper. And
exactly.
That's awesome. Perfect. All right, moving on. Okay, so number 16 for me. So now we go back to the Book of Souls. And so I listened to the Red and the Black and like thinking, is that the one that's supposed to rival the Rime of the Ancient Mariner? And then I heard the Book of Souls, the title track at the end of the first disc. Is that the song that's supposed to rival the Rime of the Ancient Mariner as being this big, long, epic kind of thing? All right, let me check out disc 2. All right, a couple cool songs on that. And then we get to the final track, Empire of the Clouds. And
right.
And we start with this like piano introduction, and it's like this real ominous kind of thing. I'm going to use that word a lot because I like the really more theatrical things that have these slow, ominous intros. And then like we get like these really like off the wall, like progressive elements, like stuff that you would hear like on the end of Somewhere in Time with stuff like Alexander the Great, like some of these really like weird mixed meter and goofy chords, and there's synths and there's tons of awesome leads, and it picks up and there's like really cool catchy choruses, and then the chorus changes to something else, and then that happens, and that's really catchy, and the song is almost 20 minutes in length and it feels like it's 20 seconds. And by the time I got to the end of that, I'm like, oh, okay, that's the one they were talking about. That's the one that they're claiming. And I would say it's better in every respect. That might be a bit of a controversial opinion. I know the Rime of the Ancient Mariner is a really popular suggestion that's probably going to be on a lot of their fans' top 20s. But to be truth be told, I'm really not a big fan of that song. I think it's a little overrated. It might be a bit of a hot take, but I think Empire of the Clouds just blew it out of the water, and I was really impressed. It was like I knew that this band does a lot of progressive stuff. You know, I love Seventh Son, I love Somewhere in Time, I love A Matter of Life and Death, and they could do some real interesting progressive stuff. But this one just takes the cake in that regard, as far as being just a progressive powerhouse of displaying what this band is capable of. And I can't wait to hear more stuff like that on future releases.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's a fantastic song. It's a song that will take you on a little journey, man. You sit down, you listen to that, and 20 minutes is
it flies.
Gone
it's awesome.
in 10 seconds. Yeah, it's a great song. Number 16 is a deep track from No Prayer for the Dying. it's the best song on the album. It is a song called Fate's Warning.
Oh yeah.
And you have nothing to say about that because you're like, because it's been a while since I listened to that, but I always like that song. Fate's Warning, just pretty much about lyrically, it's about like, okay, who dies in the car accident and who walks away from it? How come the bullet always hits the other guy? It's about fate. It's about why things happen, why bad things happen to good people, stuff like that. Be it the devil or be it him. It's a great song. That's all I gotta say about it. It's a great song on a not so great album. That album is another. It's like Fear the Dark. If you took half of those songs from No Prayer for the Dying, and half those songs from Fear the Dark, and put them together, you'd have a great Iron Maiden album. But those two albums were kind of, especially coming off of Somewhere in Time, Fate's Warning, was probably the best thing on that album. There's a couple other decent ones. Run Silent, Run Deep. That's another great song on that album. But nothing really compares to that song. Yeah, it's another World War II song. Usually when they sing about something about history, it's a good song. But of course, Run Silent, Run Deep does not make my list. At least I don't think it did. It didn't make my list. Fate's Warning did though, because again, there's so many things I wanted to include here, and you may be looking at it as, okay, what's a better song written? And I'm looking at what I like better. That's
okay.
What my list
There's
is.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's what makes it
right.
top 20.
My list is more personally what I love about Iron Maiden, and these songs are what I love about Iron Maiden. So that's number 16, Fate's Warning.
Cool. Very cool. I really don't remember that one too well. I recently listened to No Prayer all the way through, not that long ago. I have to do it again because there's always those moments in that album. Because like the first time I heard it, I was like, I really don't like this album that much. I'm going to go back to some of the other stuff. But then, I put it on just one day because I was like, I really don't know these songs that well. And like, it was the same, like half of the songs, I was like, I'm actually, these are pretty solid. They're really, I mean, I really like Tail Gunner. Tail Gunner's awesome. Yeah. It's not on my list, but it's definitely good.
When we started doing this, I went back and listened to it, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I remember enjoying it the first time.
I'm sure Fate's Warning was on my list of like, this one's actually really good and I should listen to it more. So I'm going to have to check that out and give it another listen. But
yeah.
In the meantime,
okay, you're number
15. So number 15 is off of Brave New World. This song Blood Brothers is just so anthemic. And it's awesome live, and the entire stadium sings along with it. The chorus is so simple, but it's so catchy and it's so melodically beautiful. And I love like they really kind of dig into this like real kind of Celtic feel with it. And it's definitely one of the staples of that album, I would say. And like it really like The Wicker Man opens the album and it hits you with like, this is what Iron Maiden is now. Like all of their best members are together for the first time and we're into the dawn of a new era. And for me, Blood Brothers was the song that like cemented that, like, yeah, these guys are here to stay and they're going to make a lot of awesome stuff for the next God knows how many years. And just to get ready.
20 years it was.
Yeah, well, and counting, right? Because we're still going. I think they, if I'm not mistaken, they have another album in the works that's on the way in the near future.
Yep.
I think Steve Harris, confirmed that within the last couple of months. Like, yeah, we're working on another one. It's I'm not sure when it's going to release, but it's coming, and I can't wait.
Bruce just put something up on the website not too long ago. I think last week or the week before that. They're working on it.
Yeah, so that's great. And of course, watch me post this episode and then like the new album drops and like, all right, well now my top 20 is probably gonna have to change because I know I'm gonna like some of their newer stuff that comes out.
Now, that song is also on my list, but I do have to say one thing that I didn't actually write in my notes because I have a bunch of things to say about that song. But one thing I'll say is when I saw them in Madison Square Garden with my buddy Ed Yannick, it was right after Dio died.
Oh,
and Bruce sent that song out to Ronnie James Dio. And I'm telling you, man, there wasn't a dry eye in the house.
I would have bawled, man, because Dio's anyone who knows me, Dio's my favorite singer of all time.
Yeah.
I would have
started talking about brotherhood. He started talking about brotherhood. He started talking about, us all being in it together kind of stuff and how he loved Ronnie. And man, it was pretty emotional, and they played Blood Brothers. And yeah, so that's, again, I have a lot of things to say about that song. I'll wait to It's on my.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably much higher on your list. Yeah,
it's much higher.
Cool.
So my number 15 is one of the most epic prog songs that Iron Maiden did. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, the title track from the album. It blew me away when I heard it, man. Like you're talking, I was 15, 16 years old when I was listening to it on headphones, cassette, down in my mom's basement.
Yep.
That's where I used to go. That's where my drums were. So I'd go down, sit down there, and listen to the metal. And I was, just reading the lyrics, thinking like, what the hell are they talking about? It was like some kind of crazy Dungeons and Dragons lyrics here.
Yeah. Awesome. He has the power to.
That whole album filled.
He has
filled
the
with fantasy lyrics.
Second sight.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so fantastic.
That middle part where he just starts doing that
spoken word
stuff. So
yeah,
great.
And those guitars are getting and fading in, and it's building up, and it's just great.
It's great. It's a great one to listen through. Quiet night, headphones, like a deep listen. Seventh Son, man. There's a lot of stuff going on through that whole album, but that song in particular, and they do a great job with it live. I've seen them do it live twice, I think. But it's a great song, and it's when Iron Maiden becomes a progressive band, which is around Seventh Son.
They do it really well.
They do it really well. Yeah, and that song is perfect to showcase like what they could do when they get that little progressive-ness in them, and they're like, let's go off in this direction for a little bit, and it's good stuff, and you get that. They're great at making that atmosphere. You feel that. That song just feels cold,
Yeah.
And you look at the album cover.
You feel it chill every time you listen to it.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. You're number 14.
Yeah, well, this is going to be a little bit of deja vu for us because your number 15 is my number 14. Also, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. I think it's it's probably my favorite song on the whole album. I do have another song higher up on the list that I think stands the test of time better, and we'll get into that when we get higher up here. But for me, Seventh, for all the things that Jeff just said, with the atmosphere it evokes and the lyricism is really, really interesting and cool. I love how the whole album is themed around this. If you're the seventh son born of a seventh, you get the power of clairvoyance and you can see into the future. It's really got that cool like Dungeons and Dragons-esque kind of fantasy vibe to it, and the lyrics are really evocative and really imaginative and really cool. I love that there's a lot of use of synth and keyboards, and there's all those cool they sound so dated. I remember listening to Seventh Son for the first time in like the mid 2000s when I first got into Maiden, and I picked up as part of I think it was like 1998 they did like the whole re-release of all their albums on CD, and that was how I listened to all of it for the first time, just picking up one at a time and listening to them and getting really into the band. And it was actually Jeff who recommended, you got to check out Seventh Son, it's their best album, blah blah blah. I was like, all right, cool. And then whoa, there's all they're doing progressive stuff. Wait, what? I didn't know Maiden did that. And of course, that whole album, start to finish, is just a masterpiece. And we've talked about that in earlier episodes. But for me, like by the time I got to that song and hearing, I remember, I literally can recognize that choir synth sound because it was the same sound on one of the synths I had in the 90s growing up. Was it's really, but it had a certain charm to it, and just for how well musically put together and well written it is, it doesn't matter how dated and kind of maybe borderline cheap the instruments sound, because just the music is just so timeless. And especially like that once that whole after that build up, and then it just takes off, and there's just all it's just new section after new section after new section, and you get this mixed meter thing with the dual leads. I was like, what is happening here? This is amazing. That was probably what did it for me, was hearing that. Just it's like 10 seconds of music, and it's like going into the eye of the storm, and it blew my mind. And every time I listen to it, I still get a chill every time I hear not just that part, but the whole song in general. It's awesome. I love it. It's fantastic. And Bruce is at his best.
Yeah. Powerful vocals, especially when he's singing the chorus.
He's just hitting the O's. Yeah, just like in The Trooper. He doesn't even need to say words to sound good. He is a god among men. Fantastic singer. And he does fantastic work on Seventh Son, the whole album. And that song is a testament to that. So moving on.
Now my number 14
helped
me pass 9th grade history. Alexander the Great.
Nice.
I am not lying. I'm not lying. There was the final. It was like a final exam. I believe it was either 8th or 9th grade. I want to say it was 9th grade.
Probably 9th. World Civ is usually a 9th grade topic.
Yeah, a final exam was to put the life of Alexander the Great in chronological order. All the things he did. That's we were studying ancient Greece and stuff
Piece
like
of
that.
cake for
and
you.
so I was like, I got this. It was like the only time I scored 100, in any test in high school was that one. There was another time Iron Man helped me in school, but this is the first time. Alexander the Great. And plus, it's a great song.
Yeah.
I love when they talk about history. I think that's usually their better songs.
Yeah.
When they base them around historical things or literary things, when there's something, deeper there. And yeah, it's pretty much, I don't know if it's complete chronological order, but it's
close enough to get you a perfect score on a test in school.
It's close enough. And musically, I think it's great. It starts off, slow, and there's a marching drum. I always love the marching drum and in the beginning there.
Makes
Then
for really good text a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Nico's doing a nice, real tight buzz roll as the music starts building. He starts with this. It starts with the spoken word. The kingdom I leave is too small, or something like that, and just starts off with the marching drums. And then as the music builds up, Nico starts doing these beautiful little press rolls there, and then it kicks in, and it kicks in, and it has that great Iron Maiden type groove. And then of course, in the middle, there's all these little proggy segments musically. Yeah. And then when it comes back, it's a totally different section. When it talks about the end of Alexander the Great's life, and then they end it with the chorus again, and it just fades out. It's a beautifully written song.
Yeah.
13 minutes long that feels like it's like 3 minutes long,
I feel like that. I've always, from the first time I heard that song, the first time I listened through all of Somewhere in Time and heard that, like I always felt that Alexander the Great was a better closer of an album than the Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner was on their previous album, Power Slave. Like, I feel like it was a lot more fitting stylistically with the rest of the album. And I feel like it was a lot more kind of tightly packed and had a lot more of much more interesting content. I really like that song too. That's actually a song I kind of tend to go to when I'm trying to show any of my like more proggy kind of friends, like, hey, Maiden does like some really cool prog stuff. Listen to this song. It's really cool. It's not on my top 20, interestingly enough, but it's an honorable mention for me for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Number 13.
Number 13 is also off of Somewhere in Time, the song Heaven Can Wait. For so many reasons. Yeah. I mean, it's Somewhere in Time is one of my favorite albums. And I think lyrically the concept is cool. Someone who's like, you know what I mean? So like, and just for how kind of it tonally, it's a lot different than a lot of their earlier stuff, but like it's still quite at the same time distinctively Maiden. You hear like this really catchy chorus, and it's like, oh yeah, that's totally Maiden. And then like the whole bridge in the middle of the song, and you get that nice like little like moving O's chorus kind of thing. Whoa, whoa, it's just so catchy, and they do it. And I would love to hear this song live. I've never seen them.
Oh, you've never seen them do it live?
No,
never.
I don't think so. Not that I can remember, but I would.
They bring the whole crew on stage with them.
Okay, I've definitely never seen them do it live then, because I don't remember that at all. So
watch it. Watch it on YouTube. Just look it up live. They'll bring the production crew and their families and stuff up, and they got a whole.
Oh, dude,
you have
that makes it even better.
On stage screaming the whoa 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 part. Yeah, and that's you could really move your beer stein to that too. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
It's just so cool. That part alone is like what I like so much about the song, but the rest of the song doesn't slack in any regard. It's got really catchy guitar stuff, really catchy vocal stuff. The chorus is great. Harris is at his best. Some of the bass fills he does in between sections. Just the lyrics are cool. It's fast. It's fun. It's got a little bit of everything. It's a great sample platter, and it's got some of those progressive elements. So it just puts it just a smidge above Seventh Son on my list, but it's not by much, but it's there.
that whole rhythm thing that they do in that song, that dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that
Yeah.
staccato thing they do, especially at the end when
Mhm.
everyone's doing it. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. That's my number 13 also. So
Really?
we can move on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Well,
love
there
that.
we go.
Love it. Love
Yeah.
it.
Oh, very cool. Did you
So
have anything else you wanted to say about it?
no, you pretty much basically you said everything I wanted to say about it, and I just wanted to add that they bring like some of the stage crew up to dance around with them and sing that part when they do it live.
So
Yeah.
cool. If I knew that, it would probably put this song even higher on my list because I think that's a really cool idea. So
I love that. I always love that song from the first time I heard it. So what's your number 12?
yeah. So my number 12, we finally get to Judas Be My Guide. So I love that the opening bit is in 7. That it's like progressive enough that it kind of messes with your head a little bit, but it's not progressive enough that it sounds proggy, you know. Not that anything that sounds proggy is bad. I love the stuff that sounds proggy, but given like the overall aesthetic of what I think they were going for with this song, I don't think a really kind of real proggy thing would fit. And I think it's really interesting that they do have their opening bit in 7. It makes it really interesting. This is one of the few, this is one of the few songs that is written by Dave Murray, one of the guitar players. And he's probably the guy that writes the least out of any guitar players they've had. But the times he does write, it's really, really interesting. And I think it's really cool. I mean, his solo in it is one of his best. The chorus, especially the second and third time we hear the chorus, where he adds in those extra harmonies above with the higher vocal part, and like the concept of what the song is about. I love it lyrically. And even though like Bruce kind of goes for like this kind of like trashy metal-esque vocal delivery of the verses, the lyrics of the verses are really, really cool. I love the imagery that they evoke. Kneel down, help the blade cut clean. This whole idea of like betrayal and stabbing somebody in the back and planning something against someone that you know or love, or whatever, however you can interpret it. I'm sure it's one of those songs you can kind of loosely interpret in a number of different ways. Personally, for me, it was right as I was going through some experience in a toxic work environment, and there was a lot of like kind of like rumors spreading going around, and like things, this kind of overall cutthroat environment was happening under the surface of what was going on with the staff and some of my coworkers and stuff. And it was like in this real kind of tumultuous time of my life, and just for whatever, like this song just really resonated with me. And I was doing a romp through Fear of the Dark just out of fairness. Like, I should listen to even the albums I'm not a big fan of, because, and sure, I was glad I did, because I stumbled on this song for like the third or fourth listen through that album, and like it just blew me away. And I was like, well, this is like, it's better than so much of even like the stuff that I'm like super into, like all like the really progressive stuff. This song is just, if I was, I'll have to redo this whole top 20 for like what are my personal favorites. This would easily be number 1, easily. It just out of any song ever. Like it's my favorite song by them.
On that album and the one before, No Prayer for the Dying, Bruce does sing a lot more with his raspy voice, his very raspy voice.
Which to be honest, I really don't like that. I don't dig it at that. So.
I don't dig it when he does it so much. When he uses it to like accent different things, it's great. But when he he does it a lot on those albums. Like you said, in the verses he does it on this song, but when he hits that chorus, it's all melodic Bruce.
Yeah, and
that's what I like.
It's the sweetest chorus line I've ever heard. I live for that melody. It's so great.
And I believe it's about betrayal and having betrayal, just with the title, be my guide, make me learn from this. We've all had a Judas in our life, we'll say that.
Yes. Yeah. So,
okay, so enough about that though. My number 12 is, you're gonna hate it, because it's Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
Oh no. I don't hate this song. I just don't. I
know. Well, hey, this helped me pass 11th grade literature. Okay, so
there you go. Hey, everyone's got their reasons they like the songs they like.
I like the song. The story of the Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner recounts the mariner's experiences. A sailor who has returned from a long journey, which I always found kind of silly. If you read the lyrics, is he stops someone going to a wedding. Like, imagine you walking into your brother's wedding, last month, and there's this old raggedy sailor's like, oh, come here. Let me tell you a story about when a bird, shit on my head and what I did to it. Like, that's pretty much what happens in the beginning of the story and of the song. The mariner stops one of three. So that also means there was three people walking into a church or, into a wedding. And one of them was unlucky because some old raggedy guy's like, get over here. I want to tell you a story. And that would probably be me. I'd be like, oh, okay.
You'd be the guy telling the story.
Two of my buddies will go into the wedding and he'll go and have a good time. And I'm sitting here listening to a guy talking about how he killed a bird because he shit on his head or something. And he was trapped at sea.
Yeah, that would be me. I'd get sucked off to the side by some guy I don't really want to talk to. And it's like, why are you telling me any of this? I don't care. But I don't have the personality to actually say that. I would sit there and nod my head. Oh, yeah, interesting. Cool. Yeah.
But you know what, though, at the end, you leave him a wiser man because he tells you a story and you learn something from it or something. But the song itself, I think, is great. It has, again...
Yeah. It has a lot of great moments. I'll agree.
Great moments. There's, soundscapes. It builds soundscapes in the middle where... in the story when the everyone's dead on the boat and he's just kind of lying there, he's all dying and stuff, and how they break the music down to like pretty much nothing. It's just
like a murmur,
kind of like the bass playing a little bit. Yeah.
About that particular section, there's an interesting story. I'm not sure if you've heard of this, but when they were touring with the Power Slave tour and they were playing that song live, there was one, I forget where it was. I think it was somewhere in South America, and they were playing a show, and it was like an outdoor concert, and it was hot as balls out. And during that section where it's just that like bass thing, that kind of like droning, like weird chords, goofy kind of thing, Nico, the drummer, actually left stage because there was like a pool behind the venue, and he like recalls the event. He's like, I'm sitting there like in the pool and kind of like just like listening to what I hear with Steve, what he's playing, and I'm kind of like going into like this weird place in my mind, and I'm just kind of floating on the water. He literally left and then came back and was able to finish the song. Yeah, it's on that documentary that I mentioned at the last episode we talked about, where they go through like all of the band's history, and like right in the middle of that second part where they're talking about kind of like their golden age, and there's a lot of really interesting interviews with the members, and I remember that part just being really funny and striking a chord with me. So, well,
he's a funny guy though, man. Anything that comes out of his mouth is usually a joke.
He's so much fun to listen to.
That's how drummers should be.
Yeah,
we should just be fun. We should just be fun, goofy people. And there we go. My computer went out for a second. Oh, no. Fun, goofy people. And that's how Nico is. And I would love to base my life around him, except my foot cannot do what his foot does. Let me tell you.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's remarkable.
That's my number 12. It's a great song. It's a long song. Sometimes it's too long. You got to be in the right mood for it. Mm-hmm. But I do love it. I love the verses, how he sings it. And again, when they do literature, it sucks me in. I love it. It's great because it's like another thing I think maybe attracts me to these Iron Maiden songs is everyone thinks metalheads are stupid, and then it's like
Maiden is solid proof of the opposite. Yeah,
right. Some of them are, but Maiden is not.
These
one
guys
of
are
them,
super well read, and they really know what they're talking about, and they're great lyricists,
right.
And they're great musicians. So, and the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, as much as it's not my favorite song, it's a great testament to all of those claims. It's a really solid song put together, and it tells a really cool story.
And speaking of stories, your number 11 is based on a story,
which I really don't know anything about that. So I'd love to explore that with you and we can talk about it, because I like the song for purely musical reasons. This number 11 for me is off of their second album, Killers. One of the earliest tracks on it, Murders in the Rue Morgue, which it was one for me, Killers was the first full album I found and purchased and listened to all the way through. And something about this song just really solidified an amazing first impression of this band with me. And I mean, there's definitely a story there. I can hear it from the chorus lyrics, and especially how the story changes from, you know, someone call the gendarmes because there's a murder here, and then it's now the singer is running from the gendarmes because he has the blood on his hands. So like there's definitely an interesting story to it. I don't know much about it, but it's really fast paced. It's super fun. The chorus has this really cool, like kind of heavy riffy sort of, and like it's one of those, it's what you call homophony, where all the members are doing the same melodic line. So the guitars, the bass, and the vocals are all doing the same notes. And it just makes for a really powerful musical effect. And it's just a really cool riff and a really cool hook. And every time I hear it, I'm like, wow, this song just slaps so hard. It's so heavy. It's so fast. It's so fun. It's really short, fast paced. And it's just a whirlwind. And there's like this really short little bridge that the trio at the time just kind of goes in, you know, Steve, Dave, this is the first album that Adrian Smith is on, my favorite guitar player, and the three of them just like do this, like it's like 30 seconds, you know, and then it's every time I'm like, oh man, I love this song. I would say it's the strongest song on the whole album, and it just really hits, and so you know, Jeff, maybe you could tell us a little more about what the story of the song's all about, because I really don't know.
Well, first of all, I want to mention that another interesting thing that you mentioned that when Maiden does like these things in unison with each other, all the instruments and the vocals, they do that a lot, you know, which is great, you know.
They do it well.
Another song they do that in, another older song they do is Phantom of the Opera. They do that in there too. They do that a lot. But anyway, Murders in the Rue Morgue, Edgar Allan Poe. It's an Edgar Allan Poe story. A lot of people say, a lot of people claim it's like the first like modern detective story. It's a guy who's trying to solve the murder of two women that are found dead in Paris. I won't spoil it for you. Read it. It's a short story. It's not that long. I haven't read it in years, but yeah, it's an Edgar Allan Poe story.
Very cool.
Yeah, again, you know, Maiden, they're not a bunch of dummies. They're very well read, you know. So it's
that's awesome.
It's a pretty neat story. I haven't read it in years. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, I was reading it last week. I haven't read it in years because I'll just listen to the song again. But if you like Edgar Allan Poe, if you're into that kind of stuff, that's where it comes from. Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. I never knew that. So now I like the song even more. Now that I know that. So very cool.
My number 11 is Aces High.
Ooh.
Yeah, you know,
very interesting.
Again, World War II imagery, you know, perfectly. You can feel yourself being a fighter pilot in the Battle of Britain, you know. And what also makes that song great is Churchill's speech before it. It just perfect. And when they open up their concert with it, you know, it just sets the stage, you know. And that song is fantastic, fast. It's kind of thrashy almost because it's so damn fast. And it's just a great performance by the whole band. And again, they
still open with it now, and it's great.
Yeah. The lyrics written from the viewpoint of a fighter pilot is just it's great. And again, when they do that World War II kind of stuff or that history stuff, when they're speaking from in the first person, you know, about what they're seeing, that usually makes for lyrically for a better song, you know. So that's my number 11.
If nothing else, listen to that song for the chorus alone, because it's one of those other hallmark examples.
Oh yeah,
a great simple 3-note thing, and it doesn't really do much. It's all just steps. There's 2 parts that are a third apart, and it's super simple, but it's awesome. It's so beautifully melodic, and it that was one of the songs early on that like hooked me in. Like, I gotta check these guys out because this singer is fantastic, and then all the other stuff was great too. You know, but it was definitely Bruce's vocals that really kind of lured me in on a first impression basis, which is another reason that I think Killers was so powerful for me, because it wasn't Bruce at all yet, and it was still just powerful, and it was some really awesome music. So cool. We moving on to number 10.
Top
All right.
10, man.
So for number 10 for me, we go back to Seventh Son. This song, The Evil That Men Do. So gotta love some Shakespeare. You know, I know there was one of the, I think it's live at Donington in '92. They do a whole, you know, they perform this song toward right before Bruce left, and like they do a quote, right? You know, the good that men do is oft.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that whole thing, and just, you know, and the fact that they tied it in so well with their concept album on Seventh Son, I think it's a really powerful song. It's got a really, really awesome chorus, and like the way it's recorded on the original on Seventh Son, there's a little bit of some bluesy elements in the way Bruce decorates that vocal melody for the chorus, and he doesn't do it every time, so it makes it really pop out when he does. And I just really love how it sounds. The instrumental bits are like really, really catchy and fun. You know, and then they end it with that, and the way it just has such a tight ending. Oh, it's so solid. I think it's you know, I think out of my list here, I think that's that's the highest listing song off of Seventh Son is The Evil That Men Do for me.
The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones.
Yes,
or something like.
Yeah, and I think it's the other way around. I think, you know, the good is often interred with their bones, but the evil lives on, or something. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that.
Either or, whatever. It's something like that.
It's from, cool. It's cool. It's
Julius
thoughtful. Oh, it's from
At least that's what Wiki's telling me. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
The interwebs telling me that. Who knows? Maybe they're wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, they're probably more right than I am. I'm such a dunce with some of that stuff. So
you know what? I haven't. Do you read Shakespeare a lot? Because I haven't read Shakespeare since I had to in college. You know, so my number 10 is To Tame a Land.
Ooh.
Because I am a huge fan of Frank Herbert's book Dune, and all the Dune books actually. I absolutely love them. And To Tame a Land was supposed to be called Dune originally.
Oh.
So they called up Frank Herbert and they said, "Hi, this is Iron Maiden. We would like to write a song about your book Dune." And Frank Herbert said, "No, you're not allowed to use my name. No." So they're like, "All right, we'll just call it To Tame a Land." But in that song, in that song, they talk about things from the Dune novel. They talk about the Fremen. They talk about the Kwisatz Haderach. They talk about all these. They say all these weird words that mean nothing to people unless you read the book. They talk about taking the Gom Jabbar, and you know, it's the story of Dune. It's the story of the book, and again with their imagery, like they just get it perfectly. Like when I hear that song, I imagine the book Dune. I imagine the actual 1984 movie Dune. In the beginning, there's this like spaceship that kind of flies over you. You hear it. You hear this like low, like grumbling noise. It's supposed to be like the spaceship's flying like onto the planet Dune. The imagery, they capture it perfectly. I think. I love the song. Lyrically, it's great. Musically, it's great. And that's all I gotta say. It's Dune.
Cool.
Tame a Land, Dune, whatever you want to call it, it's Dune, and
that's the closer on Peace of Mind, right?
Peace of Mind, yeah. But yeah, if anyone like likes that song and always wondered like what are these strange words that he's saying, all these weird sci-fi nonsense words that he says in, I think it's just like the second verse, he talks about the planet Arrakis. Well, what the hell is that? No one knows what that is if you don't know it's about Dune. So it's like anyone that heard the song just took it for face value, didn't understand the lyrics. That's what it is. It's from the book Dune. So if you're interested, read it.
Yeah. So
took me 20 years.
You'll probably appreciate it even more after you're familiar with the literature it's based on. That's
funny thing is it took me about 20 years. 20 years to read that book. I would start it, I would stop because it was boring. It was until I got older, you know, and I understood like a lot of it is political, you know, it's like a political kind of book. There's a lot of politics and stuff going on. So once you understand that, then I read through the book in about a week and a half. And I love it a lot more now than I did back then. So that's number 10, To Tame a Land. Great song.
So my number 9, now we're going back to Somewhere in Time. My personal favorite song on the album, Stranger in a Strange Land.
It's a great song.
This is another Adrian Smith special that he wrote. I'm pretty sure, you know, don't quote me on that. I'm like 90% sure that Smith wrote it, but Awesome opening guitar riff. You know, you have like, it's funny because like you get the really classic, iconic, definitive Maiden gallop with the first opening couple of bars with Harris just, you know, on the low E, but it just doesn't sound like any other case where they do the same exact notes in the same exact rhythm. It just sounds different for some reason. Maybe it's because it's slower. Maybe it's because it's right in the beginning. Maybe it's because the rest of the band isn't there yet, but it's just bass and drums. And it like just on the artwork for it, you know, at this point, Jeff, you'll want to edit in, put in the artwork for the song on here. And you have like this real cool, like, you know, super like weird space sci-fi futuristic time traveling. You got Eddie in like a trench coat, like in this like bar, like holding a gun. And it's like this weird, like this cool, like just mysterious imagery of this, like this outcast character that's like just stuck traveling through time. And it ties in with the concept of what the album is about so well. The lyrics are really cool. And it's just like with the Evil That Men Do, like Bruce has these like real nice, like bluesy bends of his notes in the chorus. And when you listen to the original studio version off of the album Somewhere in Time, it's just really, really cool. And it's like no other song of theirs sounds like it. And it's just, it just hits me every time. I think it's awesome. It's very, very cool. Great solo in the middle. I'm pretty sure it's by Smith. So yeah. And that's not even the top Somewhere in Time song on my top 20 list. We'll get to that.
It's not on my list, but that song is another reason why I like that album so much, because every song on that album sounds different.
Yeah,
you know,
it's really experimental in a very good way. I think
it's different. It's you were talking about that the single, the album cover for the single of some Stranger in Strange Land.
Yeah.
I love that cover. You know, Eddie's in this like crazy messed up sci-fi bar. I think he has he's smoking a cigarette.
He's got a cigar in his mouth.
Yeah. I like sci-fi, and I always thought it was part of Robert Heinlein's novel Stranger in Strange Land, but it apparently has nothing to do with that novel. They just took the name because they liked it. Yeah, Robert Heinlein, the guy who wrote Starship Troopers, he wrote a book called Stranger in Strange Land, and this song has nothing to do with it. This song's about an artist.
You would think it would, given that that's a big kind of basis on a lot of Maiden's lyric writing.
Yeah, Stranger in Strange Land is about an Arctic explorer who dies and is frozen in the ice, and after 100 years, his body is found, preserved by other people exploring there. I just read it right off the Iron Man wiki. That's what it's about. So it has nothing to do with, like, you know, Eddie in a bar smoking a cigar in a Star Wars bar or anything like that. But the imagery works. So
that's really interesting. It's basically like the premise for Futurama, you know. With a more abrasive jump 100 years into the future instead of you know, getting stuck in a cryo chamber. He just froze to death out in the snow. Well, it makes sense because they mention ice and snow so much, like in the different parts of the chorus, and you know, and that they even you know, they found his body lying where it fell on that day, preserved in time for all to see. Like, it's all pretty obvious when you read it, but I always thought that it was more symbolic of some other deeper meaning. I always kind of read into it, you know, and maybe there was some interview. Yeah, I remember reading. It might be something on like the CD re-release. There might be like other interviews with the members of the band or something. Maybe I read it online or somewhere, but I remember reading like a whole thing of like how Adrian got a lot more involved with the writing process, because at this point he was starting to feel a little bit of that kind of like burnout. At this point, they've done like so many world tours and they've written so many albums in such a short time frame, and he just kind of felt like a little like, God, maybe this is a little too much for me. And like that just resonated with me for some reason. I don't know why, but it just did. And I was like, that's really cool that he's like really expressing this in this like really interesting, like progressive rock music with this band, and it's taken the whole band in a different direction. And I think that's really cool. And it's a big reason I love that album so much. It's just so different.
Iron Maiden's a melting pot of a bunch of different writers coming from all over, but and the way they write just works, you know, and Stranger in Strange Land is probably a good example of that. Another good example of that is my number 9, which is a little bit of a deep track from Peace of Mind, Still Life.
Okay.
Absolutely love this song. Love it's a creepy song about a guy obsessing with like faces he sees in a pool, you know, a pool of water. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it doesn't come from any kind of like literature. I think it's a story that Maiden made up themselves, or like maybe they took bits and pieces from different stories and made this one, but I'm pretty sure Still Life is their own original thing. As you're going through the song, you feel him getting like more and more possessed by the creepy pool that he wants. At the end, he's like, come on, he needs to show his wife or his girlfriend, I need to show you this pool. Come on in, let's jump in together and die, because that's what they want me to do. It's a real creepy song. I absolutely love it. And the third verse, they do this really neat kind of staccato thing between the guitars, the drums, and the bass. And Bruce kind of sings the same way over it, but underneath the instruments are doing something completely different, which is really neat, and again, Maiden does that a lot. So, but that's my number 9. So your number 8 would be what?
So for the next 2 for me, we get into a little bit of the dark ages of Maiden with a lot more of their controversial stuff. And I think a lot of the music, and of course we're talking about, of course, the X Factor and Virtual 11, which are, very collectively thought of as some of their worst albums they've ever written. And I wouldn't agree with that. I think the X Factor is really underrated. I actually just listened to the album in its entirety this week, the original studio version, which was a little tough to get through.
Wow. Oh boy.
Yeah, but it was one of I wanted to just explore the music of it again, because it's music that I don't know really well, because I haven't listened to it a lot for obvious reasons. I know it's such a bandwagon thing to say Blaze Bayley sucks as a vocalist and he was the worst thing that ever happened to that band. But I was like, well, something just kind of hit me. I was like, let me go through all of the X Factor and let me listen to it, because I remember really liking the music, and it's got these really cool progressive bits, and a lot of the songs are really cool on it. I just, I was like, maybe it's not so bad. And sure enough, I was like, let me take a more critical eye and kind of check it out. And sure enough, picking apart Blaze Bayley singing, it was like, yeah, he really is bad in pretty much every aspect of what being a rock singer is. And that's a whole other topic for another episode. But anyway, so the next 2 I have are off of those albums. And for my number 8, I put The Klansman as one of their best songs that stands the test of time. And you could definitely, of course, if I had to, I would credit a live version where they have Bruce, post Reformation era, because he definitely delivers the choruses a lot better in this song. I love the song. It's one of the only Maiden songs that has a kind of Scottish theme to it, and I think that's really interesting, and it shows a different side of what the band is capable of writing. And musically, it's just really solid. I really feel that these 2 albums as a whole were a really good precursor into what became the Reformation era. And I feel like if they were to just re-record those albums with Bruce, they would be the best. They would be some of the best albums out, not the best, but they would be among the best. And I feel like it's really a crying shame that those albums go so oft, discredited. It's like, so they did Fear of the Dark and it was awesome. And then some stuff happened in the 90s. And then we got Brave New World. It's like, no, we should really talk a little more about those 2 albums, because there's some real gems on both of those albums. So I put
I'll give you that
as one of mine. So
I'll give you that. The Klansman's a great song. There are a few songs on there that I do like, and I like them better when Bruce sings them. Yeah. Future Real is another one I do like from that era, with Bruce singing it. The Klansman is probably my favorite song out of those 2 albums. Another thing I don't like about those 2 albums, besides Blaze's voice, is the mix. I don't think the mix is very, very good on the X Factor.
I'll give you that. It's not great.
And there's a song called The Angel and the Gambler.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Is that repetitive? Wow.
Yeah. That's the definitive, why people write off Virtual 11 as a pile of trash. That's the song that does it.
Is it on Virtual 11? I don't remember.
It's definitely not on the X Factor. Like I said, I just listened to it and it wasn't on there, but I remember I've only listened to Virtual 11 once. And I got I was halfway through Angel of the Gambler, and I was like, God, why am I putting myself through this? I had to literally force myself to finish listening to the album. It was just so repetitive, and bland, and boring, and just, oh my God, it's awful. But
well, The Klansman is a great song.
Well, The Klansman is one of the exceptions, and I think the biggest problem with that song is it's on Virtual 11. If it was on Brave New World, and Bruce, it would be so many more people would know about it. I think it's one of those really grossly underrated songs, and it's great. So listen to it. Listen to The Klansman. If you want to stomach the original version, it's listenable. You can definitely hear it, but you're definitely better off listening to a live version where they got
it's so good.
It's a really good song. So check it out. What's your number 8?
And that's why I could listen to that a little bit. with Blaze singing. But yeah, I would love to hear Bruce re-record that studio version. Okay, my number 8. My number 8, Moonchild.
Oh,
Opener of
I
Seventh
love
Son.
Moonchild.
I love
Not on my top 20.
I love the beginning, when he starts singing 7 deadly sins. It's just like he's preparing you for this trip.
It's like you're sitting at a campfire and like someone's telling you like this really cool horror story. It's like, oh, I can't wait to hear this. And then it just hits you with that little synthy thing.
And he even says,
it's so cool. I love that.
He even says, and your trip begins, and that's what it is. That whole album starts with Moonchild,
It's a trip.
And like I said, he says, and your trip begins.
Not to mention the artwork.
The synth comes in, builds up, and so it kicks in, and you got this cool fantasy lyrics, and Bruce just sounds evil when he's singing it, and
it's one of his best.
He's a bornless one.
Yeah.
And he just it's cool.
It's like the one time he does that like real raw singing that I think is really, really good. Yeah, he nails it.
And it works. Yeah. That's a lot of times when he does that real raspy voice, it doesn't work right. It doesn't work as well. But here it works perfectly because he's not doing it all the time. He's kind of switching back and forth from his melodic voice to his like evil demon voice, and it works perfectly for Moonchild.
Yeah, and it's great contrast.
The song itself isn't totally straightforward. There's some different changes in it. There's some transitions, which is great. It's just a great song. It's a great opener.
It's one of the best parts about that whole record, I would say, as far as just opening it up and setting the tone of what you're in for. And it's so beautifully contrasted by Infinite Dreams, the next track. So it's a shame that the more of Seventh Son didn't make it on my top 20 because there's really not a single bad song on that record. It's fantastic.
Well, we could talk about Infinite Dreams a little bit later.
Yeah,
it's up there.
That's good to know. Spoiler alert: it's not on my list, but it's a shame we're not doing a top 30 because there are so many songs that I'd like to include that, but there's just not room for all of them. So, I guess
what's number 7?
My number 7. So we're right in the thick of the Dark Ages. This is the opening track for the X Factor, "The Sign of the Cross." I'd say is probably the best song out of this whole dark period of their 90s output with Blaze Bayley. I think it's a solid album opener. Has a really, again, it's one of those like you have this like real dark, ominous kind of thing. And there's a lot of great contrasting bits. The chorus is great. As much as Blaze butchers it in the original recording, listen to Bruce sing it live and you'll really hear what the song's potential really is. And once you get to like, they have, this is one of the earliest instances of like, they really get into these big, expansive instrumental bridges that are really progressive in nature. And there's a lot of this thing called the tritone, where you basically go up exactly 6 half steps from a starting pitch, and it creates this real evil sounding kind of thing. And they use it a lot in a lot of different ways. There's some really like there's still some parts. I just listened to it earlier this week, and there were some parts that I was having a hard time counting and following along with it. Like it messes with you a bit. It's really progressive. It's really dark. It's really cool. It's got a lot of different components in it, and I think there's something in that song for anybody. If you're trying to like, this is one that I would recommend to someone who like never really heard of the band before. It's like, go look at one of their more recent performances of this live. They played it live in 2019 when I saw them. I went to see them in New York, and they threw it right in the middle of the set, and it like totally caught me off guard. I didn't think they were going to do it, and they did, and they had a whole theatrical element with just red and black lights, and Bruce came out like with a hood and a cross, and it was it was so awesome. It was so cool. I think it's one of their best songs. And again, it's got dark age syndrome. It's on one of those crappy albums with that crappy singer, and it's woefully overlooked, I think.
You really don't like Blaze.
I feel so bad feeling this way because he's a person out there with feelings and a career, but like I really just nothing about his singing does it for me. And it's one of those we could do like a voice singing kind of thing where I kind of pick it apart from like the perspective of a singing teacher. He strikes out in every respect, in terms of pitch, in terms of rhythm, in terms of tone, in terms of everything is just really bad. I hate it. I really
we could do a whole podcast.
Like I hate to just rip on this guy.
What Iron Maiden was thinking.
I really, at that point, like it'd be one thing if like he was like in like maybe the third or fourth album, you know, and the band is still like just kind of getting into like this. They've been touring the world for 10 years. They're like one of the definitive iconic new wave British heavy metal acts. How did this guy, out of any other singer, how is he like, I would love to hear that audition tape. Like, how did he get the job? How was he the one who got hired over any other possible singer? Like, I really don't understand
I remember a while back actually hearing about the other singers that they were trying out, and each one of them was like 10,000 times better than Blaze, and they had the power metal vocal, you know, and I don't, and the rumor has it, and I think they put this to rest finally. Rumor has it that they wanted to ask the guy from Halloween, Michael Kiske, to do it, but Michael Kiske said he never got a call. Like some reporter asked him about that recently, like in the last 2 years, and Kiske's like, I never got a call. And he said, I wouldn't have done it anyway, because I'm not English, I'm German, whatever. He would have been a great replacement for Bruce. Anyway, back to Sign of the Cross. I do like the song with Bruce. I've seen him do it in concert once. It was good. It was Bruce makes the song a lot better. My number 7, Flight of Icarus.
Oh,
what a chorus that has, man.
Why is that one not on my top 20? Oh my God, I love that song.
It's a great song, and you know what? It's a lot more powerful live because it's a little bit faster.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much what I gotta say about that. I love when they do mythology and literature and stuff, and Flight of Icarus.
And they do it really well in that song. They absolutely do it really fantastic. That's probably my favorite song on Peace of Mind.
Yeah,
I would say so.
A little bit too slow. If you listen to the Live After Death version,
I have that
a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kicked up a little bit. Bruce is just so powerful. Holds that note at the end. It's great. It's fantastic.
Cool. Yeah, very cool.
That's my number 7.
Yeah, we're getting close to the top here, guys. Hopefully you guys are getting as excited about the reveals as we are, because I mean, this is just such a cool band to talk about, and I would love to easily do this, revisit it several times with different guests. You know, any of you Maiden fans out there that got top 20s, you know, maybe we could talk about setting up an episode where we feature some other lists, and we could talk about, you know, and we could give you our impressions of those songs and elaborate on them further, because it's a really easy way to start conversations. So my number 6 is a song we've already talked about, Aces High, because it's probably on my top 3 on a personal level, as far as like, it's one of the songs that like got me really hooked, and like I got to listen to this band, and like just both solos. I think both Dave and Adrian take solos on that one, if I'm not mistaken. And they're both fantastic solos, and the chorus is just it's textbook. Like, here's how you write like a really effective chorus that you could do a lot with a little. It's not really musically complex or complicated at all, but it delivers so beautifully. And Bruce's vocals on it are just great. I think, and plus it being the opener of Power Slave, it was definitely a really easy album for me to listen to. See, like, oh, that's the first track. All right, I'm totally buying. It was one of the first albums I bought. I think Power Slave might have been the second one I listened to all the way through. And, you know, going into and starting with Aces High, you know, hearing them play it live, you know, when I saw them do it last year, they opened and they went whole hog with the theatrics and the stage props, and this giant balloon jet plane comes out on top, and you know, you hear all the gunfire from the dog fighting, and it's just, and you know, and plus Bruce is just, he's got to be in his 60s now, right? And he is just all over the stage. And it's like a multi-tiered setup thing, and he's in every corner. He's jumping, he's kicking, he's screaming. He's still hitting all of the notes perfectly, and just the rest of the band is just a powerhouse backing him up and putting this whole thing together to really make for an experience. You know, not even so much just listening to the recordings of the songs, which are great. Seeing them live is a whole other ball game, and it's
they really bring it live, man.
Oh my God! So yeah, that's my number 6. Aces High. We've already talked about it, so let's keep going. What's yours?
Revelation. That's my number 6.
Yeah, I should have expected a lot of stuff on Peace of Mind to show up on your top 20. Especially your top 10.
Even though when we talked about favorite albums, Peace of Mind lost out to Somewhere in Time and Seven Sun and Brave New World, but it's still a solid album. And Revelations is a solid track. You know, I like that it's partially based on like a a traditional hymn.
Mhm.
And I always have to say, every time I talk about this song to people, I always tell them to go look up on YouTube Bruce singing it at Canterbury Cathedral with Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull. Bruce, it's a Christmas thing, that Christmas concert they did, and they did Revelations, but they did it more the traditional version of the song, but a lot of the Maiden lyrics, a lot of the lyrics that are in that song in the Maiden version are in the traditional hymn. So you got Bruce Dickinson with Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull and a few other musicians in this big old cathedral, and Bruce does not have a microphone.
He doesn't probably
And
need one.
he doesn't. He sings this, and he's using, the natural reverberation of the cathedral. It is amazing to hear him sing this song like that in that place around Christmas time. I watch it every year. Every year I pull it up on YouTube.
Please send me
Christmas
that.
Eve.
I'd love to hear that. I haven't listened to it yet. I keep forgetting to check it out. So send me that. So I don't
Fantastic. No,
forget.
Mike. So that the song itself I always love.
It's probably their best slow song.
Yeah.
Most of it is slow. I mean, it has parts that pick up a little bit here and there, but
Right.
it's really easy for a lot of these metal bands to kind of like falter when they do slower, more ballad-esque sort of things. But
I guess
this is an exception to that. It slaps.
We could call it, I guess, like a power ballad maybe. But there's that fast part in the middle that da-da-da, da-da-da, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a great, powerful song, and especially one other thing I just thought of, the Live After Death version of this song. If you listen through headphones, at the end when he says, "It is you," and then he holds out and says, "All of you."
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even trying to sing it because I'll be flat. But when he says "all of you," if you listen way in the background, you hear someone drop the F-bomb from the crowd.
Nice.
It is the most hilarious thing. Like we all used to laugh about it in high school because when we first discovered it. It should still be on the CD if you listen to it at the end of the song. So I think it's a crowd. Someone from the crowd just screams, "Mother effer."
That's awesome.
So every time I hear it, I always a little voice inside me wants to say the F word. But yeah, that's my number 6. Revelations, fantastic song.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. So now we're on the top 5. We're getting down to the wire here, guys. I'm excited. So this next one for me is, I would say, the strongest song off of my favorite album, A Matter of Life and Death. This is For the Greater Good of God.
Love it.
I did not know that this song was as well received as it is. I always felt that album was kind of underrated and not a lot of people talk about it. So I was beyond surprised and pleased to hear them put this on their live set last year. And it turns out that it's a really popular song by them, and rightfully so. It's really, really strong. Yeah. It's very, very powerful. I love the closing stanza, where it's, he gave his life for us. He fell upon the cross, and it ties into the whole overall theme about war. And, it raises a lot of questions. It's literally all the chorus lines are questions. Please tell me now what life is. Please tell me now what love is. And then it ties into like, why do we even fight wars like this? And it just, the way it kind of like helps facilitate that level of critical thinking and questioning of like why these things even happen in the first place. And the choruses are so catchy. And even in that main "For the Greater Good of God" line, and that little counter guitar melody that comes in gets me every time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just so good. And all of the big instrumental bridge section in the middle that really kind of plays with a lot of different stuff. It ties into that whole slow opening bit. All of it comes back in full bloom with the band, and I think that's really nice writing. It's really well written and arranged, and just with it, there's just a little bit of string synth throughout the whole album, and it's perfect. It's written in such a way that it complements all of what's going on with the guitars and all the solos. I mean, on every song on that album is just, it's some of their best playing, I would say. And this song is like the perfect package. It's not the longest song on the record, but it's I would say it's one of the most progressive, and I love that. And it was like, like by the time I got to The Longest Day, I was like, I love this album. This is my favorite album. By the time I got to For the Greater Good of God, I was like losing my mind. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I can't believe that these guys are able to make music like this, and I love it so much. So that's number 5 for me.
It's a fantastic song, and I hate myself for not putting it on my list. It was on my list for a while, and then
other stuff pushed
I had
it out.
to, I had to remove it. Yeah, it's not 21, it's 20. So
Yeah,
I just couldn't leave.
that's a shame.
I couldn't leave the rest of the stuff off. And I'll tell you what, it probably would be in the middle of my top 20. That song. It's a great song, though. I really like that. That's my favorite song off that album. Is that number 5? Caught Somewhere in Time.
Oh, nice.
The chorus, just the chorus alone, and just how crushing his vocal sounds. It's
the
just
guitars
so
played in the
powerful.
beginning. I love the way that it sounds on the opening bit, right? The first 3 notes you hear. It's great.
That takes me on a trip, because it's okay. We're going to talk about science fiction, time travel, weird stuff like that. You
and
look at the album cover,
and spaceships, and it's going to be awesome. Yeah,
it's perfect.
It's going to be super fun.
Yeah, and that's the perfect opener for that album. And again,
great chorus.
The ways they write metal music to bring onto the listener just different types of atmospheres. I don't know another band that does it as well as them.
Yeah,
that song sounds like the theme song. If we're gonna go time traveling, that's the song I want to hear.
Yeah, same. If I get in a DeLorean, I'm blasting "Caught Somewhere in Time" at full volume. Yeah,
you're not gonna blast Huey Lewis. You're gonna blast Iron Maiden.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Okay, number 4.
Number 4. This is another from the Reformation era, and it's one of those, like, when you get to Dance of Death, it's like I grabbed it at some point in my Maiden journey and was like, all right, this is pretty cool stuff. It was awesome. And then it was one of those, okay, I revisited it again after. It's like, all right, I should probably stop listening to A Matter of Life and Death. I should listen to all the other albums that are around that same time, because it's probably, and sure enough, we get to Passchendaele, which, oh my God, if there is one song that just sets tone and tells a story and has this like dark, chilly atmosphere that just sucks you right in. This is another Smith special, I'm pretty sure. It's another one written by Adrian Smith, which it's another reason that he's my favorite member of the band. It's just everything that I have said about all of my favorites so far apply to Passchendaele, and then some. And it's easily the best song on that entire album. I mean, the album is pretty solid overall. There's a lot of great songs. Rainmaker is on there, and that's a great one. The title track is really fun. Dance of Death is really cool. It's a shame it's not on my top 20, because it's another good honorable mention. But yeah, Passchendaele just takes the cake, and again, it ties into the themes of war, and you're from the perspective of a fallen soldier. And that's really interesting, because not many songs about war do that, I think. Many of them kind of do more like the more glorious side, and this is like, oh, this is some dude that got shot and he's dying in a ditch, and it's his like kind of final thoughts on life and like why he even fought in the first place. And it's just really dark and haunting, and I think it's really well written, and I think all of the music complements the theme of what that song is about really, really well. Super well written. It's a dynamite hit. I'd love to hear it live someday. And yeah, that's Passchendaele. If you listen to nothing else in the Reformation era, listen to that one song.
Fantastic song. That album is pretty solid, and it does no songs from that album or The Final Frontier appear on my list. It's just, again, there was 20.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good
songs. These
guys
wrote too much quality stuff.
Yeah, really. Dance of Death is another good one. No More Lies I like.
No More Lies is a good one.
Mm-hmm. Passchendaele. It's a pretty strong album. There's some songs on the album that
I'm not big on I think the opening track.
The opening track of Dance of Death is Wildest Dreams.
Yeah, that's
it's your standard. Cool. It's your standard Maiden track, fast Maiden track. That's pretty much what it is.
It's fun.
The second track's a lot better. Rainmaker's actually a lot better.
I feel like Rainmaker should have opened it. It would have been a much more solid opening, but that's just me.
Right.
That's neither here nor there.
I agree. Well, my number 4 is going back to Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, Infinite Dreams.
Ooh.
Love this song because it's like it has this like cool laid back groove to it to begin with. They got these like little jazzy licks on the guitar when in the beginning. It starts off with this really tasteful solo. Really cool stuff.
Yeah. I would agree.
And then lyrically, it's all about like, are you a believer? You're an unbeliever. What happens when you die? All this good, all the
crazy thoughts you have when you're laying awake in bed at night. It's great.
Yeah,
Scared to fall
yeah,
asleep again in case the dream begins. It's
right,
great.
right.
Yeah,
And it's
very cool.
and it all ties back into the whole seventh son. It's about the seventh son thinking about all this stuff, and there's that whole theme that goes through that album that, okay, you can look at it as a concept album and the story of the seventh son, but there's also
each of the songs stands on their own though too.
Yeah, but I mean, lyrically, there's always like these questions of life, the universe, and everything that go through that whole album, basically, and especially in this song,
more so in that song than any other on that album. I would agree.
Yeah. And the changes and the transitions that the song goes through, it starts one way and ends sounding like a completely different song, which is great. And that's,
if I'm not mistaken, it even ends in a different key. They change keys halfway through, I think, a couple times, and then it just ends in a different key, and it's like, oh, okay, whatever.
It's there's not another song in the Maiden catalog that sounds like that one. It's I
really
love
colorful.
I love it.
Yeah, great imagery,
Love it.
Great lyric writing, great guitar playing, great everything. So,
wow, here we go. What's your number 3?
Number 3 is my top song off of Somewhere in Time, and I know you're going to enjoy this one. Wasted Years. So it's one of my top 3 Maiden songs of all time. I think it so tightly encapsulates all of what Somewhere in Time is about. This is another example of Adrian Smith being at the spearhead and making some really awesome creative motions with the band. And his solo is awesome. His opening guitar riff is great. Watching them play it live is great. Yannick does this really cool thing where on every other note, he like flips his hand over the top of the neck of the guitar just for showmanship, just to show that like, yeah, I can just play this stuff in my sleep backwards with my eyes closed because I'm Yannick Ayers. So, and like with one of my legs propped up on one of the amps, just because, it doesn't matter that I'm in my 50s or 60s. I can do a full perfect split because I'm part of Iron Maiden and I'm awesome. And I feel like that guy gets a lot of negative flack because a lot of people kind of like he's so silly, but he is such an awesome addition to that band. Yeah, I think he's great. He was a perfect replacement for Adrian when Adrian left. And the fact that he was so good that when Adrian came back, they were like, let's just keep Yannick and have 3 guitar players. Yeah. That's a really powerful
that was a perfect choice.
But back to Wasted Years, everything about it, it's got this really great chorus. This is one of those songs that can appeal to like even not a metalhead, like someone who's into like kind of more poppy kind of stuff. It has a little bit of like a sort of pop feel to it, I think, just in the catchy nature of its chorus melody. And, that main guitar riff that keeps recurring is great. The lyrics are really, really evocative. The imagery is really cool. And it's got the really cool, like kind of synthy guitar bits that whole album is so well known for. And I think it's just a really cool sound that shamefully enough they've never really properly replicated. Even on Seventh Son they kind of threw away some of the synthier stuff. There's little sprinkles of it here and there, but it's almost the frontal focus of Somewhere in Time. And if it wasn't for Caught Somewhere in Time being the opener, I think that this being the second track is the second best thing to really kick the whole thing off with. And it's a great song. So Jeff, maybe you could tell us a little more about Wasted Years. I know this one's pretty tight for you too.
Yeah, but I can't tell you yet because we didn't get to it yet on my list because my number 3 is The Clairvoyant from Seventh Son.
Yeah.
This was one of the first songs by Maiden that really hooked me. Lyrically, musically, and what I really loved about it when I was young, and I remember hearing it when I was pretty young. I mean, this album came out, what, in 88, 89? So,
87, I think.
87? Okay, yeah. So Somewhere in Time came out a long time, or Seventh Son, excuse me. Seventh Son came out a long time ago. So I was a pretty young, impressionable metalhead. What really I enjoyed about it was how the transition from the verse to the chorus is this abrupt shift.
It changes completely.
Yeah. And then it changes again when it hits the solo. There's a totally different part underneath the guitar solo. I loved it. I love that about Maiden. That was what really made me fall in love with what this music was. It was unexpected. Like the song just didn't go from point A to point B and repeat like most stuff you hear on the radio. This was like
took a couple different steps in different directions. And that chorus is just so beautiful.
And lyrically, there's a time to live, time to die. Great
it's so
stuff.
perfectly
and
written.
again,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that
and
they
again,
keep changing the key of it too. That's something that appealed to me on the first
yeah,
impression, listening to it as like a piano guy. Like, oh, now they're in this key, now they're in that key. Oh, that's so cool, because they could have easily like kept the key the same but moved everything around, but they didn't. They actually just changed the key, and it makes it sound even darker. And then they just go back to the
yeah.
key so seamlessly, and then there's really, it's just awesome. I would agree. I love that song. It's one of my favorites on Seventh Son, and it's one of the first songs I ever learned on bass. Interestingly enough,
Oh yeah,
when I was getting into
yeah,
playing
and
guitar and
it
bass,
starts off with a
yeah,
starts off
that
with a
whole
great
opening,
bass. Yeah, great
and
stuff.
it's not hard to play, but it's so powerful. It's a great opening
Yeah.
statement for a song that's just going to blow you away. So very cool. Number 2 is The Trooper.
Okay.
For very much a lot of the same reasons I like Aces High so much. The Trooper, for me, it's, if you couldn't tell by the songs I've listed so far, it's the choruses that do it for me, and this
Sure.
chorus doesn't even have lyrics because it doesn't need them. You just have this perfectly delivered vocal line, and they put like a little bit of flanger on
Yeah.
his voice, and it just makes it sound so. And I was like, the first time I heard it, I was like, what is this? What is this band? I can't believe that there's something out there that sounds like this. And it's just this really cool, like operatic, just these nice little vocalizes with the O's. And it's just, and then when I got into it, I started reading the lyrics and getting into it and learning about a little bit more about what it was about, and just the way that the lyrics just are, every single line just punches you in the face. It's so fast paced and it's fun. The dueling guitar thing is there. The galloping bass thing is there. This is like the textbook definitive. This is what Iron Maiden is. If someone asks what is Iron Maiden, listen to The Trooper. That's all you need.
Absolutely.
You really don't need any other song to tell you like what this band sounds like, writes like, plays like, performs like. They do this thing live, and every time they do it live, it's just a masterpiece. They just kill it. And Bruce comes out with the flag, and he's waving the flag around, and it's just awesome. I love personally to bust this one out of karaoke. Back before COVID world, I would just get up there and like belt crazy metal stuff, and I always do The Trooper. And it's sometimes it goes pretty well, and sometimes it doesn't go so well. It's a very hard song to sing, but it's a really fun challenge, and it's just so fun to try. I'm like, I don't even care if I get up there and suck at it. I'm gonna do it because it's just so fun. It's such a cool song, and I love the way it sounds. I love that vocal hook in the chorus. I could listen to that 5 seconds of music. I can listen to that on repeat and just hear that O's over and over and over again and never get tired of it. It's one of my favorite Maiden songs of all time. It's definitely my favorite on Peace of Mind. And I think actually, as a matter of fact, I think it's the only Peace of Mind song I included on my whole list here, come to think of it, which is really
here's something that you don't need to know. Here's something you don't need to know, but I'll tell you anyway. That is, you may know this though. That is, that's my cell phone ring.
Oh, is it?
The O's. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
I should call you right now just so I can hear it, because I want to listen to it right now. Now that we're talking about it.
I have it turned off, but that's my ringtone. So if I'm sitting in a meeting and I forget to turn my phone off, you hear Iron Maiden and Bruce Dickinson screaming from my pocket because it's just the O's over and over again. Oh,
it's just that's awesome. That's awesome.
I've had it for years.
Never change it.
So my number two is Blood Brothers.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful song.
Wow. Yeah.
Beautiful song. And it's lyrically, it's a complex song lyrically, because some of it is about Steve Harrison, his father, and I think about, every time I hear that song, I think about my dad, and I think about missing my father. Because my father, my father passed away quite a few years ago. We're going on probably 9 years ago. It's also, the song's also about life after death, and the song's also about what's going on in the world. And this was written 20 years ago, and they're saying it was bad. What about now?
Yeah.
And pretty much like, how we should all be blood brothers and be together. There's all these deep questions.
Yeah. How true is that?
So that song means a hell of a lot. Yeah, it means a hell of a lot to me. And then on top of that, when I saw, again, I told you about Madison Square Garden, Bruce saying this is for Dio, it's like the whole thing, like that song is a beautiful song. And you could really hear, I think, the influence of the 3 guitar players in that song, especially, and that whole Celtic type vibe that they go for in the middle of the song when they're doing one of the changes, because there's a bunch of different parts. And again, if you haven't heard, and this goes out to everybody, if you haven't heard Blood Brothers, listen to it on the album, and then look up I forget the guy's name, but he goes under the pseudonym of Nylon Maiden. He does
Oh yeah,
classical
classical
guitar
guitar.
versions of Iron Maiden songs, and this one is probably
They're
one of the
all
most beautiful
masterfully
things.
done. Yeah, and that one
I don't know.
especially. Yeah, I would agree 100%. That's one of my favorites
Yeah.
of his arrangements of it. So,
His name is Thomas something, and his last name starts with a Z.
yeah, like Zwiesen or
It's
something
long.
like that.
Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
Zwiesen. I don't know how to pronounce it. I know who you're talking about though. Yeah.
Fantastic player, and that's another reason why this is number 2, because like I always say, like if you take a great song, you could also like
You
change
could
what
play
it's
it on a
about,
completely different instrumentation in a completely different style,
right,
and it'll still work
and it'll still
and
be great.
deliver.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and that's why that's my number 2. Love the song again. It's probably my favorite song on Brave New World is Blood Brothers. Great song.
Yeah,
So that's
very
number
cool.
2.
Yeah.
So we're getting to your number 1. This is the best Iron Maiden song ever. What is
it? This is definitely one of the songs that like I would pitch to any person like who is like, oh, I've never heard of Maiden. What should I listen to? For me,
when you say it that way, I have to agree. Like if you wanted to pitch a song to a non-Iron Maiden fan, this song probably would be one of them.
That is about half of the reason it's on the number 1 spot. I think it's on the number 1 spot for that reason. And then for other reasons that I'll get into. But I've always really, really had a soft spot for 2 Minutes to Midnight. It is one of my favorite, I would say probably like top 5. It's definitely like personally on my top 5. I just really, really like the song. I think it's an awesome follow-up. The fact that Aces High leads right into this on the start of Power Slave. To be honest, I'm really not a big fan of the rest of that album. I mean, I love the title track, and it's cool that they end with the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. I feel like that's a really great kind of segue into them doing their more progressive stuff on the albums that would follow, which is really interesting. Yeah. But for me, I feel like a lot of the space in between, I actually skip some of the songs when I listen to the whole album. In fact, I really rarely listen to the whole album. For me, it's like just do the first 2 tracks and then skip the Power Slave, which is probably gonna be
you skip over like the Duelists and
I mean, Flashing the Blade is great. Yeah,
Flashing the Blade.
Back in the Village.
They're good songs, but compared to the rest of it, they're not.
Back in the Village is one of my least favorite Iron Maiden songs of all time. I hate it. And I don't know why, because it's good. It's a good song. I just can't stand it. But going back to 2 Minutes to Midnight, it's really different than a lot of their other stuff stylistically, and I think that's another mark of Smith. I think this is another one that Smith wrote. You can tell I'm a big Adrian Smith fan because all of his songs are on my top 20 because I think they're super well written. It's awesome guitar playing, and like that's the solo he takes is just so melodic and beautiful, and like it's not overly like thrashy or shreddy. I mean, all of the guys can really shred, they all can play, but I think that's one of the things that really sets Iron Maiden apart for me personally as a band listening to them, is that all 3 of the guitar players are extremely tasteful in their playing. And there are some moments where they just like, because you kind of have to when you're playing new wave British heavy metal, you have to like just do like a lot of really fast virtuosic stuff. But honestly, in this solo, Adrian throws all that out the window. It's all like super smooth melodic playing, and he has these really nice little leaps from string to string, and it's just really like the solo itself is one of the best. I would say it's one of the best guitar solos on any Iron Maiden song ever. Fight me on that.
It's a great sing-along chorus too, you know. You can
and that's not even talking about the lyrics and the vocals. I didn't even get there yet, but like, you know, that opening guitar riff is so simple and easy, and it's got this like a little bit of bite and growl to it, and the way that it's articulated, the way that Adrian plays it on guitar with a little bit of that shake, a little bit of that slide into the, you know, like it's like a tiger that just like grabs me every single time I hear those first couple of bars. I can't tell you how pumped I get when I listen to that, and the lyrics are fantastic. It's one of Bruce's best performances, especially this early on in their career. This was one of those songs that, like, hearing it on their greatest hits for the first time, first impression, like this was one of the songs, like this was probably the song that inspired me to like, I'm gonna go out and buy every album of theirs and listen to all of of their stuff and hear everything that they've come up with, because I want to hear where this fits in to all of the grander scheme of things. I want to hear other stuff that's on the album that it comes from, which of course is then when I heard Power Slave and I was like, oh, this is so cool. And the chorus is very, very catchy, and it's really, really like it's not afraid to say what it says. It's like really like it opens eyes and turns heads, you know, like how like a chorus that ends with "to kill the unborn in the womb." You know that song is making a powerful statement, and this is a very hallmark essence of what this band is about. They're not afraid to say what they want to say and to, you know, to write the things they want to write and make the audience think. And, you know, and again, it ties into the themes of war and like how all the bigger higher ups profit off of it. And, you know, the lyrics are just so like, they still give me chills every time. You know, we oil the jaws of the war machine and feed it with our babies. That's powerful. It's very, very powerful stuff. And it's delivered in a way that's like kind of feel good and catchy and fun. But when you read into it, it's like, wow, this song is just amazing. I love the song so much. I think it's the best Iron Maiden song ever of all time. And that's even over all the crazy cool progressive stuff that's musically vastly superior. That's over all the stuff that's more definitive Maiden, like The Trooper, that slaps you in the face and gives you every essence of what the band's sound is. This is just something about this song is special for me. And it was actually pretty easy to put it at the number one spot. So there's my number one, 2 Minutes to Midnight.
There's a couple reasons why it's not even on my list. Aces High is a better song in my opinion.
Okay, that's fair.
And every time I've seen Maiden, I think they've opened with Aces High and then went into 2 Minutes to Midnight. And it's a great song, and everything you said about it is true. And I'm thinking I probably should have put it on my top 20 somewhere.
Well, I hope I can.
Because I'm thinking I want to go listen to 2 Minutes to Midnight again. But I've heard it so much. Mm-hmm. I used to listen. You know, that was another one I heard so much that it's like it just kind of fell out of favor with me. But then I'm thinking about that middle part where it kind of slows down a little bit, and there's it's a real neat. Little drum thing that Nico does with the China type in the middle. I'm hearing all that as you're talking.
Yeah, it's just so packed in with a lot of great stuff.
Yeah,
it's great.
All these different things, and lyrically, you're right. It's very powerful, and it was a very powerful statement to make in the '80s. I mean, it's an older song. You know,
this is like what 85, I think that Power Slave came out.
Probably somewhere around there.
Yeah, they did all their progressive stuff. They did this, and see, I'd be the opposite. I would love to hear. I don't remember if they did. I'm sure they did. Actually, no. Come to think of it, they might have saved 2 Minutes to Midnight 2 Minutes to Midnight until their encore at the 2019 show I went to see. I don't remember. I know they played it. I don't know if they did it right after Aces High, but if they did, I was probably like losing my mind and like loving it because it's exactly how the album opens up. I think it's perfect. The two songs go hand in hand. I think they're both great.
They do.
I would say, honestly, Aces High is probably more in my personal favor. You know, I like that song more for what it does. And I would concede that it's probably better, depending on what context you're looking at it in. But for me, like, yeah, something about 2 minutes is it's just so different than everything else they've done, and I love it, and it's great.
I can't argue there, but that's not my number one. It's Wasted Years.
All right, I should have expected that.
For all the reasons that you mentioned, Wasted Years. You know, it is to me a song that resonates with me. It resonates with me and my wife. It was our wedding song, our intro wedding song to our reception. As they announced us, we came running into Wasted Years,
which was the most metal thing I could ever have been a pleasure to partake in. Just watching that, I was so happy to have that song come on when you guys came out.
That's part of it. But I've always loved that song, and so did my wife Desiree. She's always loved that song, and like. You know, it was like it's a song that has like all the parts that make Iron Maiden great. You know, they got this great soul, this great riff. They got the bass line. There's these bass fills that are like really up front in the mix.
And he literally plays like a guitar. Like he puts in like a little harmonized line.
Great stuff.
Yeah, everything about it. Great.
Bruce's vocals, he especially in the chorus, it's catchy, it's metal, it's heavy, it's powerful, you know. And then the whole theme of like missing home and stuff like that, and you know that's part of probably what they went through, when we're writing it. They're, missing home, and they're on tour, and just, not wasting your time searching for those wasted years. That's in the past, man. Face up, make your stand, and realize you're living in the now. You're living in the golden years.
Embracing the present. It's a great message. It's a very
make the best of it, man.
And they never really wrote any other songs that.
No, I don't think so. No,
I can't think of it.
It stands on its own.
Yeah, I would agree.
It stands on its own.
My top 3, personally and objectively, it's up there. It's one of their best songs, and it's right at the height of their powers. They bust out this progressive album, and they do Wasted Years, and it's like just when you think they can't get any better, then that happens, and then they do 7 songs.
And they do 7 songs.
It's like, how does that explain No Prayer? Like, what were they? Oh man,
I don't know. I don't know how they go.
It was mainly Harris like trying to kind of pull the reins in, like, let's try and take it like back to where it started and start over.
Well, you also got Smith. Adrian Smith left after done.
Yeah, well, so I think a big part of why he left,
and Bruce did his
because of Harris's executive call to like, we're gonna try and go back to like some real kind of gritty street kind of stuff.
There is one song on No Prayer for the Dying that Smith did right, and that's Hooks and You, which is another
I didn't know that.
Charlotte the Harlot song. He wrote, I don't know if he wrote it all by himself or he wrote it with one of the other members, but he's credited. I'm pretty sure he's credited for that song. I'd have to look to make sure, but I'm sure. I know he has at least one writing credit on that. But Bruce was changing his sound too, with his solo album at the time too came out right after
going in a different direction.
Yeah, Tattooed Millionaire is a rock album, and I'm pretty sure Yannick Gears played on Tattooed Millionaire. Yeah, so you got that going on, and Bruce did a bunch of solo albums that they were okay. But then when he got back, he did 2 solo albums with Adrian Smith. He did Accident of Birth, which was fantastic. Sounds a lot like a heavier Maiden, and Chemical Wedding. We could do a whole show about that. That's a great heavy album. And if you haven't checked out Chemical Wedding, man, you really need to. That is good stuff, man. But anyway, back to the top 20. That was the top 20. But before we go, I promised one of our Facebook group members, Len Darren, he was a friend of mine from high school, one of the biggest Maiden fans ever. I asked him for his top 20. So I'm going to just list them right now. It's a little bit different than ours, but this is Lenny's top 20. This is like when I was in high school, I met Lenny, and he was like, I liked Iron Maiden, but he really liked Iron Maiden. So this is his top 20. Number 20, Longest Day. Ooh. 19, Face in the Sand. 18, Killers. 17, Infinite Dreams. 16, Wrathchild. 15, Ryman Angel Mariner. 14, Evil of Men Do. 13, Back in the Village.
Oh.
12, Purgatory. Oh, here's one. 11, Total Eclipse.
Oh.
Total Eclipse. Now, that wasn't even on the original.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that wasn't even on the original printing of Number of the Beast. It was on the UK version. It wasn't on the American version. I think it's on it now, but it wasn't original.
It's on the CD re-release.
I don't know
right before Hallowed Be Thy Name. Yeah, it's on there.
Yeah,
it's
a
awesome.
great song.
Yeah.
But yeah, originally it wasn't on like, the cassette tape I have that's sitting over there. Number of the Beast cassette tape. It's not on that.
That's really interesting.
Which sucks, because that song, I never heard that song until I watched the 12 Wasted Years video like a couple years later. I'm like, oh my God, this song is amazing. Yeah, so I had to find it. I paid like $30 for the bootleg. It was horrible back in 1989 on crappy tape. Okay, number 10, Power Slave. Number 9, Sea of Madness.
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
That's a great song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 8, Flight of Icarus. Number 7, Revelations. Number 6, Phantom of the Opera, the live after death version.
Okay.
Number 5, Stranger in Strange Land. Number 4, Children of the Damned. Great song.
There's so many good songs on Number. They really are.
Number 3, Moonchild. Number 2, Aces High. And number 1, Wasted Years. Thank you, Lenny Darren. That's Lenny Darren's top 20.
There we go. Yeah. So a lot of us can agree that Wasted Years is like easily one of the best songs ever, if not the best. Sure. I'm surprised we did this whole episode, both of our lists, without even talking about Wrathchild. that is really interesting to me, because
Yeah.
that is a really awesome song. And I feel like Killers should just have that be the starting track instead. There's like a little instrumental bit that starts.
Yeah.
I think it's called The Ides of March or something like that.
Yes.
Which is great. It's
Yeah.
really cool. But like, I feel like they should have just started with Wrathchild. Sometimes I'll actually skip The Ides of March and skip right to Wrathchild and let that start my whole Killers experience, because Killers is such a solid album. It really is.
They have too many good songs, because I mean, I could add another 20 to it.
Yeah, same. And I feel like even if we did like a top 40, we would still have to be cutting some songs out that we want to include. Because there's like there's really, even on the albums that are not that great, you know, you look at the ones that we don't really like that much, like No Prayer or Fear of the Dark, and there's a bunch of songs on there that are awesome. You'll look at all this stuff from the 90s with X Factor and Virtual 11, and there's songs on there that are great. Like I said, I listened to all of the X Factor this week, just like I said, I forget why, just out of curiosity, because I haven't heard it in a while. And there was really, the worst song on that really wasn't that bad, honestly. And I was like, I was thinking about skipping it, and I was like, I'll listen to the rest of it. And then the bridge came in, and the bridge was awesome. And I was like, I'm glad I listened to the whole thing. I forget what song it was. I'm just gonna look at my library quick. Look for the Truth is the name of the song. And it was kind of like meh, kind of okay. And I was like, all right, I think I'm gonna skip this. And then I forced myself to sit through it, because I was like, I want to at least listen to the entire album. And I was glad I did. By the end of it, I was like, I'm glad I actually listened to it. So it even wasn't that bad. And then The Aftermath was the song after that. And that song is awesome. You know, there are so many amazing songs on the X Factor, and it's just plagued by that singer. It really is. I would pay everything in the world to hear them redo that entire album with Bruce. And put Adrian back in, and like throw in extra leads, you know, do like extra solos and stuff. And that would be awesome. That would probably be one of my favorite Maiden albums of all time, would probably be X Factor, if it wasn't for what it is. So,
well, who knows what Maiden's going to do in the future, because they're a band that really doesn't play, they don't play by any rules really, which is a great thing. And they're in a great position to do that. They don't have to. So in closing, I want to say, like, this list, if you're just a passive Maiden fan, which I don't know how you could be, but if you are, and you don't know some of these songs on these lists, check them out, because these are the best songs, I think. My favorites, and songs that can introduce people to the greatness that is Iron Maiden. That's pretty much all I have to say about the subject, because we talked a lot about it. So
yeah. So I feel like we could kind of put our final wraps on this and say, you know, just what's going to be our closing statement of every Maiden episode we do. It's just going to be, all right, listen, just go listen to Iron Maiden. It's really simple as that. Pick an album, check it out. If you don't like it, try a different one, because it's probably very different and you'll probably love it. So I know that happened to me, going like literally full album to full album. And I went in a completely random order. I just went by whatever album I found at the store that particular week. And I jumped from Killers to Power Slave to one of the Reformation albums. And then I went back and then listened to the original. And then like, I was all over the place. I didn't do any of it in order. I just grabbed whatever I found. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I have like the full collection. It took me like a year and a half to really catch all of it. And even the stuff that I'm really not a big fan of, I'm glad at least I have, you know. And even pretty much every album except for Virtual 11 is on my iTunes library on my phone. And just I still go back to even the albums I don't like, because you find all these nice little gems, so many great songs. So just go listen, you know, whether you check out ours, you check out full albums, whatever, just please listen to Iron Maiden, because they're like one of the best bands in the world.